Yeah, I think this is gonna be the last video of this series. But I wanted to like get back closer to my main message, because I was getting a little bit off on some different tracks, and I was maybe attempting some subject matter, some territory that I'm not qualified to speak on. So I want to be upfront about that. Is that when I was talking about like Africa a little bit and like America, those are some. I'm just like I'm speaking a little bit kind of broad in general like that, and so I don't mean any disrespect with that. But what I wanted to say is like, so if you can imagine like a lot of like I think that if you just listen to birds, like they're very eloquent and they communicate a lot. But you can imagine that they must have at least something of a vantage point and perspective that would be unique compared to like humans just being elevated like that, and also be, you can imagine that at least once in time, what's called time, a bird has been privy to some perception or insight or vantage point or view of goings on of human beings and just life in general, that would be completely like completely unique, to have a really a deep, to be privy to some form of perspective that humans are not normally. And then you take on top of that their eloquence and their singing, and just the type of clicks and intonations they make, and it's really outstanding. There's actually a language in Africa called I think it's called it's called like, I can't make the click sound, but it's like koi sound, koi sound. My father can speak it, but the clicks is part of the communication, and it would be very incredibly difficult to mimic that or imitate it if you haven't been initiated or inculcated to hearing it. But I think the birds are similar, where they're doing something as sophisticated but kind of similar with how they talk, and it might be a more deep ancient form of communication that we might have got away from with like the clicks and the Khoisan. And I think that also the Khoisan is part of like the San people of Africa, if I'm not mistaken. And these people in Africa, they're of like a little bit, they're like of a little bit fairer complexion, even though they might have ancestry that's completely from Africa, African of Africa, in that they're recognized as one of the oldest, still existent peoples on Africa, just in terms of like culture and the people. They've been they have some of the farthest dating artifacts of evidence of ancestry and coherence as a group on Africa, and even on the earth, is the San people. And but they can favor like a little bit Asian. They look almost like a little bit Asian, the San people, and they're I think they're a little bit more fair complexion than other African groups. And my father told me that Africa has been very diverse in the past, in all like terms of like skin tone and eye color, and just people generally. Africa is very diverse before colonialism, and so those people be an example of like the contrast between the appearance and the phenotype, the genotype, but also the phenotype of human beings on Africa. The phenotype is like the outward appearance and expression, and maybe some of the strengths and the favors that come with your genetic history. But then your genotype is like your actual genetic history, a little bit beyond the expression of the genes. So like, I would have a sibling who has fair complexion, and we're of the same genotype, generally speaking, by having the same, descending from the same parents and therefore same ancestors. But the expression of our genes is a little bit different. It's phenotypes, and that might be completely natural. It's nature. It's how you have the diversity that you would need for human lines of descent, but also diversity within a community. According to Sebastian Junger in his book about war, is that you have like different families, and you can have the same family with the same social economic background and similar experiences and in contact with groups and situations in life from a family, but you can have completely different attitudes. And I've said in another video that our mind might actually be a discriminating apparatus, and that it discriminates hot and cold, light and dark, up and down, east and west, so as to give us a coherent to fathom a coherent perception of our environment. But all of our perceptions are limited, in generally speaking, and so are the different discriminations we make in order to like form values and perceptions, but in reason from that standpoint. but it might not be completely dispensable, because we somewhat need a form of discriminating and discerning. Discerning might actually be the real word. When people say, a lot of people would be comfortable with saying the word discerning, but you might actually be, for intensive purposes, be saying discriminating when you say discerning, because you're deciphering and you're appreciating difference and similarity, therefore pattern, therefore repetition, to anticipate and interact with an environment and with people, and maybe understand yourself, but you're still yet in a sense discriminating. But what that discrimination will, in the plainest, simplest terms, would be a feature of that would be your attitude, and that can be favorable or unfavorable, tasteful or untasteful, as that's experienced by others. And maybe a degree of that you can mitigate and adjust for how you would be appreciated or interpreted by others. But as you try, you may manage to affront or offend or find indifference with different people as forthright as you may think you may be. And even to be completely forthright, people might think that that's conceited, or it's just not their cup of tea that you being that forthright. So we don't get to have our cake and eat it too. But we must always learn. That might be the thing, is that no one has the perfect attitude. No one has a perfect value system, I think, as we're still human. But it is our prerogative to learn and adjust. But I was just saying that the attitude is important. But what I wanted to say is that I think that, so we are necessitated to discover balance. I think that's the real challenge in life. You can spend time doing content creation and you can spend time working, but you need to somehow take care of your needs. And you all just I see the same car coming back last, so I'm going to take out. But you need to you need to discover balance. That's what we're all tasked with in this life. So I think that, what are most human beings talking about? They're talking about money most of the time. They're talking about something that has to do with money, is what got going on most of the time. But I think that what these animals might be talking about, like these birds and their chirping, is they might just be talking about balance. Like what is all their singing amount to? It's kind of like an ether, and it amounts to like a very sophisticated network of communicating what is harmony, that is balance. And I think that's what I would imagine the birds are communicating. They're communicating balance and harmony. And that's what's required of all beings, is to discover harmony, that is homeostasis, that is reciprocity and congruence within an environment, within rhythm, within an environment that is rhythm, that is harmony. But I think that if you look at your experiences in life, you've probably gotten a lot less of what you would want than you might like, but you got exactly what you needed. If you look at the deepest things that you've been through, the different pain that you've been through, the different, what would seem needful and needless waste and suffering, you had exactly what you needed to be balanced. And a lot of as much pain as you had, it actually gave you the seasoning that you would need for your experiences. So you might have been you can imagine like someone that is like a rolling stone, where they have a lifestyle that's appealing to people. You as an ordinary person, you might not have that, but you have some of the pain and the suffering that would make you that seasoned and real to be viable and balanced. And I just want to be grateful for that. And say that it could have been any other way, and that's this balance that these birds are singing about. Oh dang, I had wanted to say more, but I thought I ran out of time. But all I was saying is that, so I was thinking, like, if you think of some of your beautiful experiences, like, I'm gonna make one more song. I'm gonna make another video, I think today, referencing some of my thoughts about like being married, and how sometimes the greatest insight is what people fail to convey, like YouTubers. So I listened to the great Kevin Samuels, and he used to talk about high value things, like dynamics of being a high value person. But he said offhand in one video that dynamics are a little bit different for a musician or an entertainer or a musician, but yet he didn't fully enunciate that on any video that I saw, and I thought that was regrettable that he didn't get a chance to express that. But I want to talk a little bit about my understanding about what about being a musician, and then and it has that to do with marriage. But just to say that we always get what we need in balance.